It's time to put the good in your morning. You're watching the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. And today, a contentious voting rights bill fails in the Senate. We'll have the latest.
Zach, there's a heat wave on the horizon, but as far as our middle of the week goes, how can you beat a beautiful morning like that? We'll have the latest from the Skywatch Weather Center.
Also, we make another pet connection with the Southeast Kansas Humane Society. The KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 starts now. On Fox 14, I'm Zach Dodge. Senate Republicans successfully block a sweeping voting reform bill. With the Senate chamber divided 50-50 along party lines, the For the People Act, pushed by Democrats in the White House, fell significantly short of the 60-vote threshold required to defeat a Republican-led filibuster. The bill would have expanded automatic voter registration and early voting, end partisan gerrymandering, and make Election Day a national holiday. Republicans insist the measure would undercut the power states and local governments have over elections. Missouri Governor Mike Parson calls lawmakers back for a special session to work out a deal on a critical piece of Medicaid funding. Parson said the special session will end at noon today, or begin at noon today, so lawmakers can pass a tax on medical providers that draws down a significant amount of federal Medicaid funding. Lawmakers face a tight deadline to reach a deal before Missouri's next fiscal year begins July 1st. Parson has threatened to enact massive spending cuts if no deal is reached by then. At issue is an effort by some Republican lawmakers to stop Medicaid coverage for Planned Parenthood and some family planning services. Republican Senator Bob Onder is trying to resurrect language that cuts off any Medicaid funding for Planned Parenthood. The Joplin School Board meets to approve the budget for the next fiscal year. That budget includes about $121 million in expenses and $91.9 million in revenue. The biggest increase in expenditures are the bonds for the new Dover Hill Elementary School and the additions at Kelsey Norman. $26.4 million was approved by voters for the school projects, but only about $2 million of that was spent in the last fiscal year. Police are looking for video evidence after a shooting that left 3 people dead and 4 others injured in St. Louis. 2 victims were found dead outside of a convenience store Monday night. A third person apparently collapsed in a nearby schoolyard. Police describe those 3 victims as adult men in their 30s. There's no word yet on the condition of the injured victims, and the motive is still unclear. Officers have been canvassing the city's Vile neighborhood for video evidence of the incident. An Oklahoma inmate is back in custody after he was accidentally released nearly 2 months ago from the Oklahoma County Detention Center. Jail officials say they're still unsure what went wrong, but they're now working to make sure something like this doesn't happen again. Administrators with the detention center were first alerted Friday that 37-year-old Raimundo Suarez was accidentally released. Jail officials say they acted immediately and notified local authorities that have fugitive task forces. The jail also put out a fugitive warrant for his arrest, but the search didn't last long. Officials say Sunday afternoon, Suarez turned himself in after learning he was being looked for. Jail officials are now looking into what caused the issue. Missouri officials urge people to take steps to prevent drownings as the arrival of hot weather and the easing of the COVID-19 pandemic means bigger crowds at Missouri waterways. At least 10 people have drowned so far this month in Missouri, and 6 others died in boating accidents. None of the 16 victims wore a life jacket. Across Missouri, at least 39 people have either drowned or died in boating accidents so far this year, including at least 7 children. A 4-state hero returns home. Sergeant Lloyd Allenbaugh's remains were identified last year after he was reported missing in action in Korea during fighting at the Chosin Reservoir. Sergeant Allenbaugh's remains arrived at the Tulsa airport yesterday and were escorted by members of the Warriors Watch Riders to Ulmer Funeral Home in Carthage.
It's just a good feeling in my heart. That's the reason I do this, is for the veterans first, but also for the families. We all do that.
Law enforcement also joined in on the escort for Sergeant Allenbaugh. The city of Pittsburgh is providing a limb drop-off location for residents who suffered damage during the June 11th storms. You can drop off limbs at the burn site 1.5 miles east of Rouse on Quincy from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. through Friday of this week. If you need tree limbs picked up, you can submit an application through the C-Clicks Fix application. Here's something that sounds like it came from a James Bond film. A group of friends in Egypt create a car that can drive on water. You can see them taking one out for a test drive. Each vehicle takes 3 weeks to produce and is priced between $19,000 and $44,000. And while it's currently only able to operate on water, the group hopes to create an amphibious model that can also drive on land. That is super cool, and that price is not bad for essentially going to be an amphibious car. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, just take a John across the. Wait, so it gives credence to, like, if you and I were behind the wheel and we look at the SO and we go, no, trust me, I know a shortcut, right?
Right.
And yeah, instead of Siri telling us to turn around 8 different times, be like, no, it's cool. It's cool.
We're just going to cut across the lake here.
You started that off with the James Bond. Was it
Right.
Spy Who Loves Me?
I have no idea. Sorry, I'm not giving you much, but I really
think
have not
that
seen
was-
any of those movies.
I think that was Spy Who Loves Me that
Okay.
that was in. Shout out Carly Simon. Nobody does it better. Live look over 7th and Rangeline in Joplin. We are off to a gorgeous, gorgeous Wednesday morning as temperatures right now sit at 64 in Joplin. Let's go 66 in Parsons and 65s in both Nevada and in Miami. So we've already had about a 4 to 5 degree jump up from where we were pre-sunrise, headed right up into the 80s by the time we get to the noon hour. Really the closest system to us has been right now up through northern Illinois. And remember, that is the same part that was actually hit by a tornado just several days ago. Now, this is not anything severe of like that nature, but just wanted to point that out, that geographically that's just about in the same place. Here in the 4 states for our Wednesday, we're talking about 86, 87 degrees, and really probably about 81, 82 by the time we get to the noon hour. Top out about 86, 87, a little southerly breeze, 5 to 10 miles per hour. Now, we do have some rain that's going to sprint in here for Thursday into Friday. We're not looking at anything severe. It kind of wants to magnify over Kansas City and then work its way to the east of us for Thursday into Friday. And speaking of Thursday into Friday, guess what returns? Ooh, temperatures back into the 90s.
Thank you much, Michael. Up next, we hear from a Joplin doctor about the lessons he's learned throughout the pandemic. A couple loses everything after their camper was stolen in Missouri. Details ahead. You're watching the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. Missouri now leads the nation in per capita new infections, and the Ozarks have now become one of 2 hotspots in the state. 120 cases of COVID-19 were reported by Webster County last week, compared to just 7 in mid-May. Local doctors blame the Delta variant. Research indicates it is more contagious and potentially more deadly. It's been more than a year since the pandemic first hit the 4 states, and in that time, doctors have learned a lot about the virus. This morning we hear why one thinks it's important to talk about even the basics, more than a year in. From how the coronavirus spreads and the symptoms that come with it,
fevers, headache, chills, fatigue,
to the long-term impacts,
COVID has weakened the muscle cells themselves.
and the knowledge that's brought about the evolution of treatments.
This past 18 months has been all about this grand experiment of trying to find out what are effective treatments and what is a waste of time.
Healthcare professionals like Dr. Rob McNabb have learned a lot about the virus over the past 18 months. Now he's passing that info along to residents like Marjorie Ellis.
I have known some that have passed away, and so, that makes you very conscientious, I guess you could say, about the disease.
But with slews of information available online and otherwise about the virus, why talk about the basics more than a year in?
Some of it's accurate and some of it's inaccurate. And I think that the most important thing for me is to talk to people that are who I would describe as vaccine hesitant. They're not against vaccinations, but they're cautious, and rightly so. How can you make good decisions with poor information?
He hopes that the good info he gives this group will spread as they have conversations with their friends and family, especially now as vaccinations slow and hospitalizations increase, and as the Delta variant of the virus hits the state.
That's the best way, word of mouth, to be able to get good information out to the community. Because if you are at high risk and you're hesitant to get that vaccine, you're the person that I really want to find and talk to.
Freeman Advantage is Freeman's wellness program for adults 50 and older. Scientists believe they may have found a way to study the interior of Venus without landing on its surface. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory and Caltech have developed a balloon that's able to detect earthquakes on Earth. Barometers, which measure changes in air pressure, are attached to the high-altitude balloons. Using the technology, scientists were able to detect aftershocks of an earthquake in California in 2019. Scientists are hoping this technique can be used to reveal the mysteries of Venus. Nothing is able to land on the planet because its temperatures and air pressure are so high. That would be pretty cool
Amazing
to know
how far those can go up in the air.
Right.
Speaking of shots of the sky and whatnot, would you like to take a gander at the 7th and range line illusion that I was trying to pull off here? We were talking about James Bond.
Yeah.
Carly Simon.
Uh-huh.
Like Heaven Above Me.
Oh, yeah.
The
Okay.
Spy Who Loved Me.
Sorry, that was going kind of completely over my
Nah,
head at
sorry.
first.
I told Dodge earlier. I'm like, man, you are co-anchoring with an absolute nerd this morning. Me. I'm like,
Right.
I'm the nerd alert here. 64 degrees is where we stand, an absolutely delightful morning. You'll notice the barometer is on the rise, an indicator of a high pressure system that is hanging over the entire Midwest, forcing that storm system up by Chicago just about into the Ohio River Valley. That's where its next stop will be, and nothing really able to make it over the Rockies out to our west. And so that just means absolutely delightful middle of the work week. Now, we are going to have some changes that we're already thinking about. That being said, I don't want anybody to change their tune and have anything to worry about on this Wednesday. But as we progress into Thursday, a couple things are going to happen. Number one, Thursday is going to bring us a heat up, even with some cloud cover, but also too, watch this rain that comes sprinting through here, if you will. We're not looking at anything severe by any means, but on the backside of it, also too, some much warmer temperatures. The most severe weather will stay up to the north, up by Kansas City, and also too, out to the east of us by Springfield. But we are stuck in the 90s on Thursday and Friday. But look at Saturday and Sunday. After a little Friday rain, right back into the mid-80s. We'll be back with more KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this.
It's time to honor today's four-state hero. Tech Sergeant Jeffrey Long served in the United States Air Force from 2003 to 2004. He fought in Iraq and received the Bronze Star. His hometown, Liberal, Missouri. We're proud to salute Jeffrey Long, a four-state hero. A Virginia couple was left with nothing recently when their camper was stolen in Missouri. You see, after selling their house and furniture, the camper was all they had. Alessandra Young reports.
Bev and Tim Nyden just sold their house last Monday. After 25 years in Lynchburg, they decided to move to Oregon to be closer to their family. But during their road trip, things took an unexpected turn.
It was gone. It was just gone. It was like just disbelief. Wait, what? This is crazy.
They walked out of their motel room and their camper and truck, which held every speck of their belongings, had been stolen.
Sold everything, all our furniture, everything, and everything we owned was in the trailer and the truck. We don't have a spoon.
Wednesday morning, the Nidens filed a police report in Blue Springs, Missouri. With what they plan to use as a temporary home, car, and possessions gone, they tried to get a rental car to hit the road. But due to a shortage, they had to wait before they could get one.
We've been in that motel 6 days, 6 nights. It seems like we've been there 6 months.
They both say they're still in shock because a lifetime of memories are just gone.
We've been married 42 years. Everything we've accumulated, the little things, that can't be replaced.
Still, the Nidens say they're getting through this, thanks to so much love and support from everyone.
Thank you for all the support, really. We love you guys back there.
As of Tuesday afternoon, the couple's GoFundMe page had raised more than $13,000. Another half hour of news and weather coming up. Coming up on the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14, a pop icon's court battle.
Britney Spears is heading back to court. I'm Kevin Cork in Washington with more on the pop star's battle to reclaim her multi-million-dollar estate from her father. That's just ahead.
And renting or buying. We tell you which is more cost-effective in today's housing market. You're watching the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. We'll be right back.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Welcome back to the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. It's currently 7:31. Let's take a look at today's top stories. Missouri Governor Mike Parson calls lawmakers back for a special session to work out a deal on a critical piece of Medicaid funding. Parson said the special session will begin at noon today, so lawmakers can pass a tax on medical providers that draws down a significant amount of federal Medicaid funding. Lawmakers face a tight deadline to reach a deal before Missouri's next fiscal year begins July 1st. Parson has threatened to enact massive spending cuts if no deal is reached by then. At issue is an effort by some Republican lawmakers to stop Medicaid coverage for Planned Parenthood and some family planning services. Republican Senator Bob Onder is trying to resurrect language that cuts off any Medicaid funding for Planned Parenthood. The Joplin School Board meets to approve the budget for the next fiscal year. That budget includes about $121 million in expenses and $91.9 million in revenue. The biggest increase in expenditures are the bonds for the new Dover Hill Elementary School and the additions at Kelsey Norman. $26.4 million was approved by voters for the school projects, but only about $2 million of that was spent in the last fiscal year. Missouri officials urge people to take steps to prevent drownings as the arrival of hot weather and the easing of the COVID-19 pandemic means bigger crowds at Missouri waterways. At least 10 people have drowned so far this month in Missouri, and 6 others died in boating accidents. None of the 16 victims wore a life jacket. Across Missouri, at least 39 people have either drowned or died in boating accidents so far this year, including at least 7 children. An earthquake sends shockwaves through parts of Peru Tuesday. A 5.8 magnitude quake rattled the South American country's central coast, sending tremors to the capital city. Residents reportedly ran for cover out of their shaking homes and businesses, but there are currently no reports of major damages. Parts of Peru lie on the so-called Pacific Ring of Fire, making it prone to earthquakes. That is intense shaking for sure.
Just out of curiosity, Zach, I was actually having a serious conversation with one of my friends earlier this week. Have you ever been in an earthquake?
I have not ever been in an earthquake.
I have not either. I'm discounting, I'm not taking it lightly. I'm discounting the ones that we've had, whether it be the new Madrid fault. We've experienced a couple of those in the past couple of years. I've never been in California or anything like when it's happened. And it's funny, he's lived out there for 20, 25 years. He grew up in Missouri, and he's like, I'm to the point now where I forget about the threat of tornadoes.
Really?
But for him and his wife and his kids, earthquakes are commonplace. Like,
Yeah.
they don't think about it. And I'm like, I really don't know how I would react.
Yeah, me
Everything
either.
started, shaking around me. His kids, on the other hand, they've never experienced a tornado warning. Yeah, isn't that crazy? All right, let's take a live look outside of 7th and Rangeline. Beautiful start to our Wednesday morning, and our temperatures already beginning to climb as we sit at 64 degrees right now. Look at the pressure barometer on the rise, and what that's going to mean are clear skies, sunny sailing throughout the entire day. And I love the fact that our humidity is already down to 70%. That means we're not going to have a whole lot of difference between our temperature and what it's going to feel like. 64. Look at that. Folks, I couldn't plot that any better than what it is right now. You walk out, it's about 64. Skywatch Storm Tracker with some morning thunderstorms moving through Illinois into Indiana, but that's as close as they've gotten to us as our wind comes in just from the south at just 5 to 10 miles per hour, so that's not going to pose any type of a threat. And we're going to climb into the 80s by the noon hour, top out around 86, 87 later on this afternoon. Do have a little rain that wants to move in for late Thursday morning, and not looking at anything severe. You'll notice that cloud cover that accompanies the precipitation. Well, here's the thing. You would hope that would slow down us a little bit heat-wise. Not the case. 90s for Thursday and Friday, but then back down to the mid-80s for Saturday and Sunday. We'll be back with more KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this. On the KOAM News Now Facebook page in our morning Insta poll, it's about food on a first date. All right, so let me give you a little background here. Now, there's a marketing researcher called OnePoll, and they interviewed, I don't know the number, but they were asking about, what's ideal for that first date, and going out to eat was a logical consensus answer there. Oysters, mussels, sushi, they were like, no. People said pizza, burgers, salads. So we asked, what's your first date food? And 35% of you came back and said it was steak. Which was interestingly enough that Zach, when him and now Mrs. Dodge, they went on their first date, she had steak as well. So I thought that was pretty cool that aligned there.
For sure. And it's interesting to see that Mexican food is up to 25% now. But yeah, cool.
What else piqued your interest? Oh, the 25% Mexican food?
Yeah.
I'm surprised only 4% went burgers. Isn't that something else?
Yeah, I know, right?
Huh.
You think that would be a big one?
Well, I was just thinking because they said that was like one of the safe foods. Yeah, I'm surprised only 4% went burgers. As many people went burgers as did seafood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
all right, I turn it over. I mean, your first date was very successful.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
How about yours?
Which first date you want to talk about, my man?
Whichever one you remember.
I got one for you. No, I got it.
Okay.
Baxter Springs State Park. Okay? Let's go picnic.
Cool.
Right after the roundabout. You know what I'm talking about?
Uh-huh. Yes, I do.
That's right.
That'd be good. Yeah.
After picking up a treadmill.
After picking.
That's a true story, man.
Just trying to bench press a treadmill?
I'm not making this up. There's somebody watching right now that is like, she's hiding her head in her hands right now going, Michael, how much farther are you going to go with this? I'm like, no. There it is.
Thank you.
I made a sandwich. This is roast beef. I'm a roast beef. I love roast beef. Roast beef and rye.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Cool. I'm making this so awkward by not talking.
I'm not hanging you out to dry, man. You asked me the question.
Yes, I did.
Like I was going to jump. I'm jumping on board. Roast beef, rye, horseradish, and an adult beverage.
Oh gosh, not horseradish. You lost me there.
There you go. Mrs. Dodge, you're very fortunate though that you have this young man, because you are awesome, dude. I absolutely love you.
She puts up with a lot of the time though. So. Yep. She's a saint.
We have a producer up there by the name of Caden Milner, who's also a wonderful human being. And I swear, If you don't start this next line with, in a rare move, megastar Britney Spears is preparing to comment on the details surrounding her conservatorship, he's going to walk down here.
Yeah.
He's going to physically remove us from the studio.
I'll have to make sure to do that right now. In a rare move, megastar Britney Spears is preparing to comment on the details surrounding her conservatorship. The court-ordered program putting her father in control of her business ventures and personal life and finances. Kevin Cork reports.
Free Britney! When do we want it? Now!
The battle over Britney Spears' conservatorship is heating up, as the 39-year-old pop icon is set to make her first court appearance Wednesday, since her legal team filed an appeal to end her father's control over her estimated $60 million estate last year. But what exactly is a conservatorship, and why has Britney Spears been placed under one?
A conservatorship is placed over an adult who's unable to care for themselves or make decisions for themselves.
Spears' conservatorship first began back in 2008 after a series of hospital visits and alleged mental health issues caused her father, Jamie, to file a court order to oversee matters of his daughter's business and personal life.
It's like what would happen with a parent-child relationship where somebody else is in control of this other person's life, where they move, where they go, who they see, what money they spend, contracts they enter into.
But some legal experts say the circumstances of this 13-year-long arrangement are unique.
Someone who's under a lengthy one like this is usually developmentally disabled and clearly unable to care for themselves to a point where they're not going to get better. Here, I would have thought that the conservatorship would have been brief.
Previous calls to remove Jamie as conservator have been denied. The courts, however, did name him co-conservator alongside an investment firm. Together, they are handling the pop star's finances.
Spears' appearance in court is scheduled to be virtual. We'll be right back. The cost of renting and buying a home are both on the rise, but a new study shows there could be significant savings between the two, depending on your location. Tom Ziska reports.
Whichever you choose, buying a home or renting an apartment is getting pricier. Year over year, rents in Houston have climbed more than 4%, while home prices jumped 17% in the same period. The Lending Tree report compares the two costs between a median one-bedroom apartment and the median cost of ownership. And the headline, renting is cheaper by about $600 a month on average.
That's what we're seeing, especially with the pandemic kind of driving home prices even higher, is a bigger and bigger split between who can afford to rent and who can afford to buy.
No surprise, really, that the difference was most dramatic in the nation's most expensive cities like New York and Los Angeles, San Francisco, where it's about $1,200 a month cheaper to rent than buy. The narrowest gap is in Orlando, where renting saves about $300. And in Texas, San Antonio is better than average, while Austin and Dallas skew higher. And Houston has the widest gap between renting and buying, with a $637 difference each month. Lending Tree thinks there's an explanation for that.
Houston is now getting a lot of interest from tech sectors out of places like California who want to move somewhere cheaper. So I think what you're seeing is a lot of people coming into Houston specifically and driving the home prices up, which has caused an even bigger gap between cost to own and cost to rent.
We'll be right back with more after this. Trouble in outer space. A computer glitch is impacting the Hubble Space Telescope. A problem with Hubble's payload computer has temporarily stalled viewing capabilities from the massive spacefaring apparatus. Viewing capabilities have been down since Sunday, and NASA started working on the problem on Monday. According to the space agency, experts believe the issue could be a bad memory board. Hubble is more than 3 decades old. It was deployed in April of 1990. Who will win the race into the final frontier? Two billionaires are battling it out over which of their companies will dominate an out-of-this-world industry, space tourism. Rachel Crane has more.
And we have liftoff. The billionaire race into space is taking off. Richard Branson and Jeff Bezos competing to be the first into space with their space tourism flights. Bezos' Blue Origin currently set to be the first up, with his historic spaceflight scheduled to lift off on July 20th from West Texas on the 52nd anniversary of the moon landing. It seems the Amazon mogul leapfrogged Branson, who many believed would win this race.
Sold $28 million.
And that's how much one unknown bidder is paying to be part of history and take the 11-minute trip into space with Bezos.
It's a thing I've wanted to do all my life.
The billionaire will also be joined by his brother Mark Bezos.
I really want you to come with me. Would you?
Are you serious?
I am.
And a fourth unknown traveler. The journey is a suborbital flight and going just 100 kilometers into space, allowing customers to have about 3 minutes of weightlessness. And while Bezos is making all the headlines now, Virgin Galactic's tagline is to be the world's first commercial space line.
Does it sting a little bit that it looks as if Virgin won't be, the first, and that Blue Origin might win that part of this race?
I will point out that we've now sent seven people into space, and we've made five new astronauts. We were the first of the space companies to get people up there, but we honestly don't see it as a race.
Branson tweeted his congratulations to Bezos on their spaceflight plans. Virgin Galactic telling CNN, while they remain on track to finish their final test runs, they have not set an official launch date. Both space companies have had successful suborbital test flights over the past decade. Virgin Galactic had a setback in 2014 when a co-pilot was killed during a test flight of a previous model of their spacecraft. But the company has since sold about 600 tickets at more than $200,000 each, a cost that's likely to go up. So far, fewer than 600 people have been to space. And whether it's Bezos or Branson, this first flight is sure to kick off a new type of tourism, allowing those that can stomach the price and the adrenaline rush their own set of astronaut wings and bragging rights for life.
Zach, this is a question that we've had on the show before, but I don't think I've had the privilege to ask you this. Mm-hmm. Would you be one of the first ones in line? Take cost out of it, okay?
Okay.
Pretend that cost is not a factor in this. Would you be one of the first ones in line to say, yeah, I want to go up there?
That is a really tough question. I have given absolutely zero thought to it so far, but it would be really cool, and it would be awesome to be a part of making that history. Of course, if cost was not a factor in what's
right. Yeah, I'm taking that part out of it. I'm taking that part out of it. I'm not going to lie to you, it scares me to death.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. It may be just like an unfounded fear of mine. I'd much rather see like what's under the ocean than maybe what's in space. Also, too, Rachel Crane, who we just heard from, interestingly enough. I always like it when she does a space innovation story. Mm-hmm. She, her degree is in religious studies.
Huh.
Yeah. She does marvelous work, and such an extremely intelligent person. It has been a pleasure to know her and her background.
Cool.
All right, let's jump to the Skywatch Storm Tracker as we've got some thunderstorm activity in the contiguous 48 moving across northern Illinois, same place that was hit with the tornado last week. And so they're bracing for more severe weather. Now, it's nothing tornadic for them. This is a welcome reprieve in the deep southern and western portion of the United States where they're getting much needed rain. For us, we're talking simply about blue skies. Now, shift off to the west right here, because I was looking at this just a little bit earlier. We're seeing some growing cloud cover, especially through southeast Kansas, and it's making its way towards southwest Missouri right now. It doesn't have any precipitation in it, but we are going to see those clouds kind of ebb and flow throughout the course of the day. So while we've been able to bump up 3 or 4 degrees since sunrise, we sit at 64 right now in Joplin. This is going to slow us down just a little bit. At the same point in time, we're still going to be able to make it up into the 80s by the noon hour and top out around 86, 87 this afternoon. Just not going to be the fast heat up, which is very nice. And then we'll have 90s on Thursday and Friday. The rain on Friday and Saturday tempers us back off for mid-80s for the weekend. We'll be back, wrap up this edition of the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this.
Welcome back to the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. Here's what's happening today. The U.S. will fall short of President Biden's goal to have 70% of adults vaccinated against COVID-19 by July 4th. The White House downplayed the deadline but noted a pressing need to increase the vaccination rate, especially for people under the age of 30. Democrats are vowing to continue to push for a federal voting rights bill after Senate Republicans used a filibuster to block the For the People Act. GOP leaders said the measure would have infringed on states' rights and was designed to benefit Democratic candidates. And the Detroit Pistons are the winners of this year's NBA draft lottery. The last time the Pistons had the #1 pick was in 1970, when they selected future Hall of Famer Bob Lehner. The draft will be held July 29th. Let's check in with Michael for your final look at the weather.
I never even realized that they hadn't had a #1 pick since then. That's crazy. You think about the amount of people that came through there. Tate, do you know when Isaiah was drafted? What pick was he? Obviously, he wasn't #1. Afternoon planners had us in the mid-80s. Whole bunch of sunshine today, and as we work into the weekend, temperatures do rise on Thursday and Friday. Next shot for rain tomorrow late morning into the afternoon.
Thank you much, Michael. And you're going to like this story. Spider-Man joins the faithful at the Vatican for Pope Francis's weekly audience. A person dressed as the superhero sat among the socially distanced faithful this morning and listened intently to the pontiff's message. Spidey didn't take off his mask, though, as coronavirus precautions were in place. So we may never know who was beneath the costume.
I know who was beneath the costume.
Who do you think it was?
Peter Parker.
Yeah, Peter Parker.
Boom!
That is totally something I could see Tom Holland doing too, though.
Thanks to Tate behind the camera. Isaiah went #2. Thank you so much for letting us put the good in your morning. Back with more news and weather when we see you at noon.
Have a great morning and an even better day.
Chevy is America's fastest